Namibia, a country of vast wilderness, untouched beauty and raw adventure. From towering sand dunes and ancient canyons to rugged mountains and incredible wildlife, this place has it all. This place is spectacular. So grateful to be able to come here. Over 2 weeks, we'll be exploring this incredible country for the first time, and we'll be doing it with a rooftop tent as our home. Join us as we explore the beauty of Namibia. The first day or two was really just about getting to the capital of Windhoek after a long journey and generally making sure we had everything we needed to start the trip. For our first night, we stayed at the popular Arabush Travel Lodge, conveniently located close to where we'd pick up the vehicle and our camping equipment the next morning. Following a full rundown of the vehicle and how everything worked, we stocked up at a nearby supermarket and made our way to our first campsite, the Quiver Tree Forest rest camp. And going to this area was somewhere I was really looking forward to seeing on the trip, and photographing the iconic Quiver Tree was high on my list. Strictly speaking, the quiver tree is not actually a tree, but rather an aloe, and they can be found across southern Namibia and northwestern South Africa. Known for their thick, water-storing trunk and spiky, Y-shaped branches, they can grow up to 9 meters tall and live for 300 years. The quiver tree is a prominent feature of this dry landscape, and the name comes from their cultural significance with the indigenous San people once using the hollow branches to make quivers for arrows. One surprising feature of this camp is 2 rehabilitated cheetahs, which although are free to roam in the wild, have lost their hunting ability, and so every afternoon they come back for feeding. For sunset, we headed a little bit further up the road to a place called the Giant's Playground, which is full of dolerite rock formations and was a great place to see our first proper Namibian sunset. So this morning I've come back to the Quiver Tree Forest, not too far away from where we're camping, and yeah, this is absolutely spectacular. Just love these trees, just so photogenic, so unique as well. They just look really cool. The sun is just about to rise and it's got that sort of pre-morning, pre-sunrise glow, which was just fantastic. And yeah, this area is not easy to photograph. I'm just trying to pick out a few key scenes and then just sort of concentrate on them, but yeah, it's just so chaotic. It's quite hard to find a clean composition, so if I do find one, I'm sort of exploring all the angles. So after sunset last night, we headed back to the car and we prepared our dinner, which was quite basic for the first one. And yeah, I headed back out into the Giants playground and did some Astro photography, which was really good. It's probably the first time I've seen the Milky Way with the naked eye anyway. And it was, yeah, really spectacular. Yeah, really good experience and sort of exactly what I wanted from this trip, being able to look up and just see a beautiful night sky. Oh wow, that was a fantastic morning. Sun is up now, starting to warm up because it does get quite chilly here overnight. Gonna head back to our campsite and have some coffee and breakfast and yeah, enjoy the sunshine and enjoy another day in Namibia. After breakfast, we explored the Quiver Tree Forest one last time and came across an incredible nest occupied by the sociable weaver bird. We then headed to our next campsite, and this short drive gave us an opportunity to build up our confidence on the gravel roads, which will feature more and more on this trip. Alright, so we've come to our second campsite of the trip, and this one it's only about 20-25 minute drive further up the road from the Quiver Tree Forest. This campsite and this whole area is a little bit less explored. It's a bit more off the beaten path, but there are loads of quiver trees here. So I'm hoping to come away with some nice images here. I thought it was worth doing one night at the more sort of well-known location and then another night at a lesser known location. So we've got here at about midday. Gonna spend the day just wandering around, relaxing, and we're gonna put up the tent a bit earlier this time around because yeah, last night it was trying to figure it out for the first time in the dark is not always the best. So yeah, I was gonna pitch it up and then have a more relaxed evening. The facilities were really good and had everything you needed, to be honest. We then prepared our lunch and we were even joined by a few visitors. So Namibia is one of the least densely populated countries in the world. It's up there with places like Mongolia, and it's pretty surreal to experience, to be honest. I think a perfect example is this campsite. There is nothing and nobody for miles around, and just in the middle of nowhere you've got this campsite where there's all the facilities you need, and obviously with the vehicle that we've got, we can get here and we can also sleep in our tent on top of the car. That whole experience is something I really wanted to do in Namibia, and to be honest, the first couple of days of the trip, I think it was a little bit rushed just because we were getting from A to B, or you know, picking up the car, doing the shopping, just sort of making sure that we've got everything. I think today is probably the first day that we've had a chance just to fully relax and unwind. So it's probably worth talking a little bit about our itinerary for the next 2 weeks. Tomorrow we'll be making our way to Fish River Canyon, which according to some sources is the second largest canyon in the world behind the Grand Canyon. And then from that point, we'll be making our way north on our way to a place called Sossusvlei, which is probably the most popular destination in Namibia, I would say. And yeah, we'll be spending quite a few nights in that area, and then we'll be making our way further north to a place called Spitzkop, and then for the final sort of 3 or 4 days we'll be in Etosha National Park, where we're hoping to see lots of wildlife and enjoying our time on safari. I spent quite a bit of time researching and planning this trip, just to make sure that we're not doing so much driving every day and we are actually enjoying the experience and not putting too much pressure on ourselves to get from A to B, if you know what I mean. So for the first few days of the trip, we've kind of taken it a little bit easy, not sort of going too far in one day, and just sort of getting into the swing of things really. For the days where we do have longer drives, we've sort of spaced them out over the next 2 weeks. So we've got a pretty long drive in a couple of days' time. That's probably about 5 or 6 hours. But then, you know, the next long drive will be 4 days later or something like that. So we've just tried to sort of space them out as best as we can. Later that afternoon, we made use of the 4x4 off-roading course, which provided some nice views of the surrounding landscape. Alright, so now is probably a good time to just show you everything we've got with our setup. As you can see there, I've set up the rooftop tent, and much easier second time around. Now I've had a bit of practice, but I'm sure as the trip goes on, it will become a bit second nature. So go up the ladder, and then that's sort of the space that you're working with. We actually brought our own sleeping bag. A little bit nicer to have your own, plus it's quite a thick sleeping bag because it does get quite chilly overnight here at the moment. Yeah, you definitely want a thick sleeping bag, and the one they provide is not overly warm, to be honest. So yeah, that's the setup on top, and then down below, so you get a little fridge with sort of 2 compartments. So we've got all of our fresh food in there, keeping nice and cool, and that is run off a separate battery which is connected to the car. So as we're driving, we're charging the secondary battery, and then we've obviously got our luggage in the back there. And in these 3 boxes here, the bottom one, you can't see it, but all the bits and bobs related to the car. So there's jump leads in there, there's a air compressor to pump up the tyres, tyre pressure gauge. And then in the second box, we've got all of the cooking pots and pans and things. Got everything we need. And then the top one is plates and cutlery. So yeah, pretty good setup, I would say. And then some other things that we've got. So we've got a gas canister for the cooking, and then we've got a jerry can that's just full of water. There's also a spare tyre, there's one there. And then there's also another one under the car. So it's always good to have 2 spare tyres, particularly as Namibia is very remote. And then set up in the front, pretty standard really. It's a nice new model, so very easy to drive. It's 4x4 as well. In the back, we've basically chucked a load of stuff in there. Stuff we don't really want to get too dusty, because it does get dusty in the back here. But there is a flap that you open which lets air in. I think it's something to do with negative pressure or something, but basically it prevents all the dust and sand from settling in this cabin, which has worked so far. And yeah, that's pretty much our setup. Some other things on this vehicle, so there's a double tank. The standard is 80 litres, but this has got 160 litres, I believe. So yeah, it gives us a pretty long range. Don't have to fill up as often, but more importantly, there aren't as many fuel stations in Namibia, so you kind of want to have the extra range just in case. But yeah, pretty cool car. It's first time driving this sort of vehicle, big sort of utility 4x4, and yeah, it's been good so far. That evening, I ventured out with the camera for another incredible sunset. Good morning everyone, and what an epic morning. Another beautiful sunrise, and I've come back out to a random location, and yeah, just finding lots of really interesting perspectives. I found that about 30 minutes before sunrise and 30 minutes after sunset, you get this lovely ambient glow in the sky, and pretty much the whole sky just turns red and magenta, which is just beautiful. But it also, all the rocks you see around here, you know, really sort of comes to life, and it just sort of turns a really vivid sort of orange reddy colour, yeah, which is just beautiful. I've got to say, I'm really pleased that we came to this campsite actually, because this whole area is like true unspoilt beauty. You kind of get that feeling that everywhere you go, you're exploring somewhere nobody has ever been before, which is something I've sort of wanted from this trip every now and again. Just waiting for the sun to rise, should be about 5 minutes, but yeah, this has been incredible. In the next episode, the adventure continues as we make our way to Fish River Canyon and head towards the incredible landscape of the Namib Desert. Thanks so much for watching, and hopefully see you in the next one.